There was once a coastal village known for its storms. The winds came without warning, and the tides could change from calm to violent in the span of a few breaths. People who lived there grew used to unpredictability. Some feared the ocean and avoided it entirely. Others tried to control it by building stronger walls along the shore. But there was one person whose life seemed strangely unaffected by the chaos around them. He was an older man who lived far from the busy harbor. His home sat quietly on a rise overlooking the coastline. While the storms often shook the houses in the lower part of the village, his small dwelling stood firmly year after year. Many wondered how it survived, while others needed constant repairs. The truth was simple. Long ago, when he chose that piece of land, he spent months studying the ground beneath it. Instead of rushing to build a home, he spent time understanding the soil, the bedrock, and the direction the winds traveled. He paid attention to the land before he ever lifted a stone, and when he finally built his home, he placed each part with intention. The foundation was deep, the structure aligned with the natural flow of the wind. Nothing about it was careless. One morning, after a particularly destructive night, the villagers walked up the hill to see whether his home had finally been damaged. Yet there it stood, steady as ever. A small group approached him and asked how it continued to survive when theirs did not. The old man sat quietly for a moment, then simply replied, "I learned to build with the truth, not with hope." That line stayed with many, because it revealed something often forgotten. Storms do not destroy you because they exist. They destroy you when you build your life on weak ground. 2026 is not a year that gently waits for your permission. It has already begun pressing forward with its own unpredictable movement. Challenges rise and fall, circumstances shift, people change, opportunities appear and disappear. Nothing remains still long enough for you to depend on it fully. The world does not offer stable ground on its own. You have to create it inside yourself. This is where Stoicism becomes more than a philosophy. It becomes a method of construction. It gives you the framework to rebuild your identity, your habits, your emotional strength, and the direction of your life in a way that can withstand anything coming your way. Change, chaos, uncertainty, loss, success, pressure, expectations, all of it. Recreating yourself in 2026 does not mean becoming someone new overnight. It means rebuilding your foundation the way the old man built his house. Not with wishful thinking, not with the illusion of control, but with truth, with clarity, with inner structure. With a mind that understands how to move through storms without breaking. Every principle in this video is part of that construction. Each one touches a different part of your inner architecture. How you think, how you handle emotions, what you care about, what you stop caring about, how you define happiness, how you set boundaries, how you protect your energy, how you create a life that belongs to you instead of one shaped by other people. Let's begin. Principle number 1, the Stoic art of not carrying the unnecessary. Most people step into a new year carrying old burdens that never belong to them. They drag the opinions of people who do not walk their path. They carry fears that were planted in them by others. They hold shame for things outside their control. They let expectations from society, family, and strangers shape their decisions. These burdens are invisible but heavy. They steal clarity. They weaken discipline. They drain emotional strength. Stoicism teaches that the mind must learn the difference between what deserves your attention and what does not. Not caring is not coldness. It is precision. It is the act of protecting your energy from influences that bring no growth. There are 4 main sources of unnecessary weight: The first is the opinions of those who do not understand your direction. In a world filled with voices, it is easy to let noise guide your steps. But unless someone is responsible for your life or aligned with your purpose, their judgment has no authority. Listening to the wrong voices is like letting a stranger rearrange the inside of your mind. They do not know your goals or your nature. Their approval is irrelevant to your growth. The second is attachment to outcomes you cannot control. This is one of the most common causes of suffering. You work hard and expect a specific result. You hope for a particular reaction. You believe your worth depends on external events. But once your effort is complete, the outcome belongs to forces beyond you. Caring about what you cannot control is a recipe for frustration. The Stoic path teaches that freedom begins when you focus strictly on your actions, not the rewards. The third is fear of imagined scenarios. People spend more energy worrying about futures that never arrive than dealing with the reality in front of them. They create storms in their mind, crippling themselves with possibilities instead of grounding themselves in what is real. The mind that fears the future cannot act in the present. Your task is simple. Handle what is here now. Let the future bring what it brings, and face it with the strength you build today. The fourth is the desire to please everyone. Approval is one of the most addictive modern traps. But when you build your identity around the expectations of others, you lose your own shape. You cannot move freely when you are constantly adjusting yourself to avoid disappointing people who may not even know who they are. Stoicism teaches that your actions must reflect your principles, not the shifting preferences of others. The true art of not carrying unnecessary weight is learning to choose your battles wisely. You care about your growth. You care about your integrity. You care about your purpose. Everything else is noise. This principle frees energy you did not know you were losing. It sharpens your attention. It strengthens your emotional stability. It prepares you for the deeper work that follows. Principle number 2, understanding real happiness instead of chasing illusions. Happiness is one of the most misunderstood goals people pursue. Many walk into a new year believing they know what will finally make them content, only to discover months later that they chased the wrong things again. It happens because most people base their idea of happiness on unstable foundations. They follow impulses, expectations, and quick emotional highs instead of understanding what truly brings peace. Stoicism takes a very different approach. It does not treat happiness as a treasure to chase, but as a natural result of living in harmony with your values and your nature. To understand real happiness, it helps to first understand what it is not. Many people mistake excitement for happiness. They think constant stimulation, pleasure, or novelty equals joy. But excitement fades. It rises fast and dies fast. When you build your emotional life on it, you end up restless, always searching for the next rush. Stoicism teaches that calmness is a more stable form of happiness, a steady mind, a balanced heart, a peaceful inner world that does not collapse when stimulation disappears. Another misunderstanding is the belief that happiness comes from a life without problems. People convince themselves that things will feel better once everything is perfect. When money improves, when relationships settle, when anxiety disappears. But life does not stop moving. Circumstances shift, unexpected challenges appear. If your happiness depends on everything going smoothly, you will rarely experience it. Stoicism suggests that real happiness grows when you stop expecting a life free from difficulty and instead build the inner strength to face whatever comes. People also chase happiness through external approval. They rely on validation, praise, or recognition to feel secure. But approval from others is unpredictable. Today it is given, tomorrow it is forgotten. A life built around external praise creates emotional vulnerability. When others decide your worth, your peace becomes fragile. Stoicism teaches that real happiness is rooted in self-respect. When you act according to your principles, you do not need the world to validate you. Once these illusions fall away, the path toward genuine happiness becomes clearer. Happiness begins with clarity. When you understand what truly matters to you, your decisions become simpler. You stop chasing things that do not align with your nature. You stop running after desires that were never yours to begin with. Clarity removes confusion and gives your life direction. Happiness also grows through character. When your behavior reflects your values, you feel grounded. You feel aligned with yourself. You feel at peace, knowing you acted in a way that matches who you want to be. Even small betrayals of your own integrity create internal conflict. Acting with consistency builds harmony that cannot be purchased or granted by others. The final element is calmness. Calmness does not mean being emotionless. It means your emotions do not control your actions. When calmness becomes part of your inner foundation, you stop reacting to life impulsively. You stop letting every inconvenience or comment disturb your balance. You begin to see situations more clearly, and your decisions become wiser. Once these elements come together, happiness becomes less of a goal and more of a natural outcome. Instead of running after pleasure, approval, or perfect circumstances, you begin building a life that feels steady from within. Happiness is no longer something you search for. It becomes a way of living. And when happiness becomes internal rather than external, a deeper truth appears. The strength that supports this kind of happiness must also come from within. Principle number 3, emotional strength as a skill you can train. Many people believe emotional strength is something you are either born with or not. They think calm people simply have an easier time dealing with stress. They assume resilience is a natural personality trait. This belief limits growth because it convinces people that emotional weakness is permanent. Stoicism offers a more empowering perspective. Emotional strength is not inherited. It is learned. It is practiced. It is developed through intention and repetition. To build emotional strength, it is important to first understand what it is not. Emotional strength is not the denial or suppression of feelings. Pretending something does not hurt does not make you strong. Avoiding emotions does not make you resilient. These behaviors create internal tension that eventually erupts. Stoicism does not demand emotional numbness. It teaches emotional understanding. Emotions are signals that provide information, not commands you must obey immediately. When you feel anger, fear, worry, or sadness, the presence of the emotion does not require automatic reaction. Strength lies in the ability to pause before responding. That pause is the heart of emotional mastery. When someone criticizes you or tries to provoke you, a reactive mind fights back instantly. A strong mind notices the emotion rising, but chooses whether it deserves attention. The pause creates space for clarity. It allows your values, not your impulses, to guide your actions. Resilience forms the second layer of emotional strength. Life contains setbacks, uncertainty, loss, and disappointment. These experiences are unavoidable. The difference between people who crumble and people who grow lies in interpretation. If you see challenges as personal attacks or signs of failure, they will drain you. But if you view them as part of the human experience, as opportunities to develop courage and patience, your emotional foundation becomes stronger. Stoicism teaches that events themselves are neutral. The meaning you assign to them shapes your emotional world. Developing emotional strength also involves understanding your reactions. When a difficult situation arises, ask yourself what the emotion is trying to tell you. Instead of judging the feeling, examine it. Notice where it began. Understand the expectation behind it. Observe how your mind interprets the event. With repeated practice, you gain the ability to guide your emotional responses instead of being pulled by them. Another part of emotional strength is learning to remain stable around unstable people. You will meet people who are unpredictable, reactive, or overwhelmed by their own emotions. If you are not grounded, their energy will influence yours. Many people lose their balance because they absorb emotions that do not belong to them. Stoicism teaches that you can care for others without carrying their emotional burdens. You can listen with empathy while staying steady inside. You can support others without losing your center. As emotional strength develops, your life begins to change quietly. You stop reacting to every inconvenience. You stop allowing others to dictate your mood. You stop being controlled by impulses or old emotional patterns. You become someone who responds thoughtfully instead of reacting automatically. You build a mind capable of staying calm even when circumstances are not. Principle number 4. Rebuilding your identity through intention instead of habit. Identity is one of the most powerful forces shaping your life. You act according to who you believe you are. You make decisions through the lens of your self-image. You repeat habits that match the version of yourself you have accepted, even if that version no longer represents who you want to become. Many people struggle to change because they try to adopt new actions while keeping the same identity. They attempt discipline while calling themselves inconsistent. They try to pursue growth while seeing themselves as someone who always quits. They chase confidence while believing deep inside that they are unworthy. Identity and action cannot remain in conflict for long. Eventually, one pulls the other back into alignment. Stoicism teaches that identity is not fixed. You are not bound to who you used to be. You are not trapped by old stories, past mistakes, or outdated beliefs. Identity is shaped by your choices, strengthened by your habits, and rewritten through conscious intention. Transformation begins when you stop accepting the version of yourself that was created by accident and start building a version shaped by purpose. To rebuild identity, you first become aware of the patterns that no longer serve you. Notice the beliefs that limit your actions. Notice the stories you repeat that hold you back. Notice the labels you gave yourself years ago that no longer fit the person you want to be. Most people carry an outdated identity without questioning it. They adopt roles given by family, friends, or past environments, and continue playing those roles long after they've outgrown them. Identity becomes a script written by others. Stoicism teaches you to rewrite that script. Rebuilding identity requires alignment between your intentions and your actions. If you want to see yourself as disciplined, you take small, disciplined actions every day. If you want to see yourself as courageous, you make small, courageous choices regularly. If you want to become someone who follows through, you start completing small commitments consistently. You do not wait for confidence to appear. You build confidence by behaving like the person you want to become. The mind learns through repetition. Every time you act in alignment with your chosen identity, your self-image strengthens. Every time you act against it, the old identity gains power. One of the biggest obstacles to identity change is the fear of inconsistency. People believe they must transform perfectly or not at all. They think one mistake means they have failed, but identity is not shaped by perfection. It is shaped by persistence. You become the person you repeatedly choose to be, even after setbacks. Every decision is a vote for your future self. The more you vote in the same direction, the clearer your identity becomes. Another challenge is the influence of others. Sometimes people around you are attached to your old identity because it benefits them or makes them comfortable. When you begin changing, they may resist or question you. This is not a sign that your transformation is wrong. It is often a sign that it is working. Your new identity disrupts old dynamics, and not everyone adjusts easily. Stoicism encourages you to anchor your identity in your principles rather than the expectations of others. When your values guide your actions, your identity becomes self-directed. Identity also grows through exposure to environments that match who you want to become. Your surroundings influence your behavior, your thoughts, and your standards. If your environment reflects your old identity, your progress slows. If your environment supports your growth, your new identity solidifies faster. Stoicism reminds you that inner transformation becomes easier when your outer world aligns with it. You do not change by force. You change by living in a way that reinforces the identity you want to embody. When you rebuild your identity with intention, you create a stable foundation for long-term change. You stop relying on motivation and start relying on alignment. You stop trying to force discipline and begin acting in harmony with the person you believe yourself to be. You stop repeating old patterns because they no longer match your sense of self. Your new identity becomes a quiet but powerful guide. Principle number 5. Using discomfort as the pathway to growth and inner strength. Discomfort is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. People avoid it, fear it, and interpret it as a sign that something is wrong. But almost everything that contributes to your growth requires a period of discomfort. New habits feel uncomfortable. New mindsets feel uncomfortable. Setting boundaries feels uncomfortable. Breaking old patterns feels uncomfortable. Building discipline feels uncomfortable. Discomfort is not a barrier to transformation. It is the evidence that transformation is happening. Stoicism teaches that discomfort is not something to escape, it is something to understand. Discomfort reveals the gap between your current self and the person you are becoming. It shows you where your weaknesses are. It highlights the habits you need to develop. It exposes the emotional and mental patterns that limit you. Avoiding discomfort preserves your old identity. Engaging with it builds your new one. Most people run from discomfort because they expect growth to feel smooth. They want progress without friction. They want change without challenge. But comfort is familiar, not helpful. It keeps you repeating the same actions, thinking the same thoughts, and living the same life. When you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. Stoicism reframes discomfort as a teacher. It shows you exactly where the work is needed. Instead of fearing it, you learn to work with it. Consider how muscles grow. Strength develops only when the muscle is placed under stress. The discomfort signals the breakdown of old limitations. The healing process builds something stronger. The same principle applies to the mind. Mental resilience grows when you face challenges you would normally avoid. Emotional strength grows when you sit with difficult feelings without collapsing. Discipline grows when you act according to your values, even when you do not feel like it. Discomfort is also a doorway to clarity. When you do something difficult, you discover what you truly value. If you stick with a difficult habit, it shows commitment. If you abandon it quickly, it reveals something important about your priorities. Discomfort strips away illusions. It shows whether your goals are genuine or superficial. It forces you to confront the truth about your intentions. Many people fear discomfort because they interpret it as danger. But discomfort is not a threat. It is unfamiliarity. The mind resists what is new because it prefers predictable patterns. Stoicism trains you to recognize that this resistance is natural but not authoritative. You can feel discomfort and still move forward. You can be uncertain and still take the next step. You can feel fear and still act with courage. When you begin viewing discomfort as part of your growth, something shifts inside you. You stop expecting life to be easy. You stop being surprised by challenges. You stop interpreting resistance as failure. Instead, you see difficulty as preparation. Obstacles become training rather than discouragement. Setbacks become lessons rather than endings. This mindset protects your progress in ways comfort never will. As you learn to move through discomfort with awareness and patience, you become more resilient. Your confidence grows because you begin trusting your ability to handle what you once avoided. Your mind becomes calmer because difficulty no longer feels threatening. You begin recognizing that discomfort is temporary, but the strength it creates stays with you. Principle number 6, building boundaries that protect your energy and strengthen your inner world. A person can work on their mindset, their habits, their discipline, and their identity, but without boundaries, all of it eventually collapses. Boundaries are the structure that protects everything you are building. Without them, you give too much of your time to things that drain you, too much of your emotional space to people who take without giving, and too much of your mental clarity to distractions that pull you away from your purpose. Stoicism teaches that the mind must be guarded, not with walls of isolation, but with lines of intention. These lines determine what you allow into your life and what you refuse to entertain. Many people enter a new year with the desire to improve, but they continue allowing old patterns, old relationships, and old obligations to interrupt their progress. They give energy to negativity out of habit. They allow guilt to dictate their decisions. They tolerate behavior that violates their values. They confuse kindness with self-abandonment. But boundaries are not barriers to connection. They are the conditions that make healthy connection possible. When you protect your time, your energy, and your emotional space, you create a foundation where your growth can flourish without being constantly disrupted. Boundaries begin with the understanding that your life is shaped by what you allow. If you allow constant interruptions, your focus disappears. If you allow people who drain you to remain at the center of your life, your strength declines. If you allow others to dictate your decisions, your identity weakens. If you allow disrespect, your sense of self erodes. Stoicism encourages you to examine your life honestly and notice where you feel resentful, exhausted, or overwhelmed. These feelings are signals. They reveal where boundaries are missing or unclear. The process of building boundaries is not about pushing people away. It is about defining what supports your growth and what undermines it. You begin by becoming clear about what matters to you. When you know your priorities, distractions become easier to identify. When you know your values, unhealthy patterns become easier to recognize. When you know your direction, you stop giving energy to anything that pulls you away from it. Boundaries are a form of self-respect, and self-respect is a powerful foundation for transformation. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear rejection or conflict. They worry that saying no will make them seem unkind. They worry that protecting their time will disappoint others. They worry that expressing their needs will cause tension. But avoiding discomfort leads to far greater consequences. Without boundaries, resentment builds silently. You begin sacrificing your well-being to maintain peace for others. You start living a life shaped by obligation instead of intention. Stoicism teaches that discomfort in the moment is easier than the long-term cost of neglecting your needs. When you set a boundary, you are not asking for permission. You are stating the conditions under which you can remain healthy and functional. This requires clarity, calmness, and firmness. You do not need to explain excessively or justify yourself. You simply choose what aligns with your growth. The more consistent you are, the stronger your boundaries become. People who genuinely respect you will adjust. Those who benefit from your lack of boundaries may resist. This resistance is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that the boundary is necessary. As you strengthen your boundaries with others, you must also build boundaries with yourself. Internal boundaries are often more important than external ones because they shape your behavior directly. You limit habits that drain your time. You refuse to engage in negative self-talk. You stop feeding impulses that undermine your progress. You no longer negotiate your goals with excuses. You no longer allow emotions to dictate actions that contradict your values. These internal boundaries reinforce your identity. They convert your intentions into consistent behavior. Once boundaries become a natural part of your life, your inner world becomes more stable. You feel less overwhelmed. You feel more grounded. You become harder to manipulate emotionally. You waste less energy on distractions. You gain more time for things that truly matter. Boundaries are not restrictive, they are liberating. They give your mind space to breathe. They give your identity space to strengthen. They give your goals space to grow. Principle number 7, living with purpose and aligning your days with the person you are becoming. Strength without direction becomes scattered. Discipline without purpose becomes exhausting. Identity without vision becomes unstable. Growth without intention becomes inconsistent. The final stage of Stoic transformation is learning to live with purpose, not as a vague idea, but as a daily structure that guides your behavior. Purpose is not a grand mission or dramatic revelation. It is a quiet, steady understanding of what truly matters to you and the commitment to act in alignment with it. Many people feel lost or unfulfilled, not because their life lacks opportunity, but because their days lack direction. They wake up reacting to circumstances instead of guiding them. They chase whatever feels urgent instead of what is important. They allow emotions to choose their actions instead of values. They drift from one goal to another based on trends or pressure, not intention. Without purpose, effort becomes scattered and progress becomes inconsistent. Stoicism teaches that purpose begins with clarity. You identify the values that define the person you want to be. These values become your compass. They guide your decisions when emotions rise. They stabilize your mind when challenges appear. They give meaning to discomfort. When your actions align with your values, your life gains coherence. You feel an internal order that replaces chaos. You stop questioning the path because the path is grounded in principles you believe in deeply. Purpose also requires vision. You do not need to know exactly what your future will look like, but you must know the direction you want to move. A Stoic vision is not based on fantasies or unrealistic expectations. It is based on who you want to become. When you picture that version of yourself, your choices become clearer. You stop acting against your own interest. You stop postponing the behaviors that build your character. You stop relying on motivation because purpose gives you something stronger: commitment. Purpose becomes real through daily alignment. It is not enough to have clear values and a meaningful vision. You must act accordingly. Every day is an opportunity to choose alignment or drift. You strengthen your identity by choosing alignment repeatedly. You weaken it by abandoning your values for convenience. The Stoics practiced daily reflection to reinforce this alignment. They reviewed their actions, not with shame, but with honesty. They asked themselves whether they lived according to their principles. They adjusted when they slipped. They improved steadily, not perfectly. Daily alignment does not require dramatic discipline. It requires consistency. Small actions matter. A small act of courage strengthens your identity more than a grand promise you never fulfill. A small act of discipline builds more character than an intense burst of motivation that fades in a week. A small moment of clarity reduces more confusion than hours of overthinking. Growth happens through these small but intentional choices. When you live with purpose, distractions lose their power. You no longer chase every impulse. You no longer feel pulled in multiple directions. You stop comparing your path to others because your path is defined internally, not externally. Purpose gives your life weight. It anchors you. It steadies you during uncertainty. It reminds you who you are and who you are becoming. Living with purpose is not about controlling the future. It is about shaping your present with intention. It is about acting in a way that honors your values even when the world is unpredictable. It is about knowing that you have the power to direct your character even when circumstances shift. Purpose transforms transformation itself. It converts progress from something accidental into something inevitable. When purpose and boundaries combine, your life moves with clarity and strength. When identity and discomfort combine, your character becomes resilient. When emotional mastery and happiness combine, your inner world becomes calm. These principles are not isolated ideas. They reinforce one another. They form a complete structure for recreating yourself from within. When you look back at the story of the old man on the hill, his strength never came from avoiding storms. It came from how he built his foundation long before the storms arrived. He understood the land. He understood the wind. He understood the truth of his environment. And because he built with intention, he remained steady while everything around him struggled to stand. Every principle you explored reflects that same quiet wisdom. The ability to let go of what was never yours to carry, the clarity to understand happiness in a deeper way, the emotional steadiness that grows through practice instead of impulse, the rebuilding of identity through conscious direction, the willingness to choose discomfort as training instead of punishment, the strength to create boundaries that protect your inner space, and the purpose that ties all of these together into a life that moves with intention instead of reaction. When these principles work together, you begin shaping your inner foundation the same way the old man shaped his home, not rushed, not careless, not based on hope alone, but built with truth, honesty, and steady effort. A foundation that does not break at the first sign of pressure. A foundation that holds even when life becomes unpredictable. A foundation that reflects the person you are becoming rather than the person you used to be. In the days ahead, storms will come and storms will pass. Some may be small, some may be heavy, but you will meet them differently, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You will respond instead of react. You will choose instead of drift. You will stand with clarity instead of confusion. And each step you take will reinforce the structure you are building from within. If this video helped you in any way, a simple like helps it reach more people who may need the same guidance. And if you want more videos that strengthen your character, steady your mind, and help you shape a life built on purpose and inner peace, consider subscribing to the channel. These teachings grow slowly, and having a place to return to keeps your path steady. You are building something meaningful. Keep going gently.